and I will start sharing my screen. So one of the things that I contended with early on in my career was that while I am the son of an artist who always brought his artistic eye to everything he did, I also worked as an accountant. And in the accounting world, it is rare to see spreadsheets and presentations done in a way that really is artistic. We accountants tend to lean more on the analytical side, which is a very valuable skill, but it oftentimes lends itself to presentations that are wanting in terms of visual appeal. So when I left that accounting world and dove headfirst into the world of creativity and started to find my own creative voice, I was grateful for some simple principles that helped guide me along the way, which I will share with you now. So in your mind, what is design? Does design send chills down your back thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to design this? I'm not a designer. I've often had people tell me that they can't even draw a stick figure, to which I often respond, drawing a stick figure is a great way to start just laying out the foundation for a more fully developed image. It doesn't require a lot of principles in order to create something beautiful. So design is, and I'm going to let you fill in the blank with that. And if you would actually unmute yourself and just shout out, what are some things that come to mind for you when you finish that sentence? Design is?
Using color.
Okay, using color.
Using imagination.
Okay.
Balance.
Balance, great.
A creative process.
A creative process, okay, beautiful.
Originality.
Originality, love it, thank you. So design is crap. I'll bet you weren't expecting that response. And you'll soon see why I am giving that response. So part of that is good design is good crap. And when I think of that, I think of the kind of a stoner voice, good crap, man. But when we think about good design, CRAP actually is an acronym for contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. And if you can keep in mind these 4 simple principles, then you can create something that is much more visually appealing. And it's actually really pretty simple once you learn the principles and how they apply to an image. So as an example, good design is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1, learn the principles. They're simpler than you might think. 2, recognize when you're not using them. Put it into words, name the problem. And 3, apply the principles. You'll be amazed. Now you'll notice very soon that this slide is not very well designed. And it reminds me of something that Brian Reed said, who said that everything is designed, few things are designed well. So if we were to use some of the principles of good design in our slide here, it would soon start taking a different form. It would soon look something very different than what we just saw. And to give a side-by-side comparison, the first image in the top left is something that we often see people put together. They're just putting ideas down on the paper. They don't really know what path or what principles to use in order to create something that is visually appealing. The second image down in the bottom right uses those simple principles of CRAP in order to create a more visually appealing and more visually effective design. So let's look a little bit closer at those 4 elements of CRAP. The first element, first principle, is contrast. And when we're creating contrast, there's lots of ways that we can create contrast. We can create contrast through different colors. We can create contrast through different shapes and sizes. And when we use contrast effectively, we make things stand out and much easier to read and to process and understand what is being communicated. When we use contrast, we make different things different. We also bring out dominant elements, we mute lesser elements, and we create this nice, rich dynamism. And our designs cease to ossify and become much more stimulating and enriching. Let us move on to the next principle of repetition. So you'll notice here that there is a lot of repetition in this image. That when we use repetition, we're repeating design elements throughout. And you'll notice in the call outs here, just some of those elements and how we are using similar patterns in order to create a more cohesive image that communicates more effectively and more beautifully than without design. We're consistent and we create unity in the image. The third principle is alignment. And an alignment, when we use alignment, we line things up. And one way to think about that is that essentially everything in your design has a place. Things aren't just thrown on the page, but they are put together in a way that creates a nice visual flow and that connects elements visually. It helps us to be able to move through this image effectively and powerfully and do so in a way that makes sense. And I want to make an aside here. It's interesting also, I wrote a poem that I shared on Facebook earlier this week. And one of the things that actually helped me in writing that poem was actually visual design, even though the only time I used visual design for it at all was when I posted it on Facebook and found an image to go behind it. But these same principles of contrast, of repetition, of alignment, and of proximity apply equally not only to visual design, but also to verbal or oral design. That by finding alignment, repetition, contrast, and proximity, we create something that is better designed and that communicates more effectively. So the last principle is proximity. And in proximity, you'll notice again that we are grouping related elements. We've got the title here, we've got the numbers here, we've got the different principles, and they each have their own place. We're not encroaching upon one area by another element. Each of the elements has their own place, and because of that is more effective and communicates more clearly, because we are both grouping related elements and separating unrelated elements, so that the document becomes easier to navigate. So let us return to our first 2 images and just spend a moment to look and see how different those 2 images are. And see if you can see, without the callouts, where we are using contrast, where we are using repetition, where we are using alignment, and where we are using proximity. And see if there is a way for you to translate these principles into the communications that you make for others, so that your voice can be heard clearly and you can make the world of difference that you want to be making in the world. So the last thing I want to say to you is that now that you know the 4 principles of design, now you know crap about design. And with that, I will turn the time back over to our Toastmaster, Andrea.
That was good crap. Thank you, Steve. We appreciate your speech. And now we will give you